Normally when I do a reaction video, I react to the entire video. Or if it's a super long one, I do a reaction that's broken into two parts over two videos. This video is different because this is looking at one particular topic that got brought up on Ashley Faye's channel. You've seen me cover a few of her videos in the past, and one particular video where I had issues with her attitude, I guess I could say, is her talking about why she left Tasmania, and it came across as a very negative video. Anyway, this video is part of a video that she recently released saying how she feels that she's changed since she came to Australia. And as part of that, she starts talking about tall poppy syndrome. And there were things I wanted to comment about this, but it also got me thinking about what really is tall poppy syndrome. And is there a line between narcissism and tall poppy? And I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I did want to dig deeper into this, have a look at what she said, put forward my own ideas and see what other people think at the same time. So let's hear first about what Ashley Faye had to say about her experiences in Australia and how she believes that she was a victim of tall poppy syndrome.
And just all-encompassing of so much. And I guess when I was first writing this list, I was like, am I really gonna say that I'm happy where I came from? The answer is yes. You know, America, the United States specifically, gets so much slack. A lot of it very well deserved. Don't you worry, a lot of it very well deserved. But like most countries, most places in the world, there's the positives, there's the negatives. And more than anything, living in Australia for over 2.5 years now has just made me realize how much I appreciate that I did come from the US and the different beliefs and values that were instilled in me from a young age that I feel like aren't as prioritized here in Australia.
You know, it's an interesting thing when someone brings up something like this about the different priorities in beliefs and views between different countries. And at first, I thought, wow, that's a really passive-aggressive comment. But then I thought about it, and I thought, no, it's a cultural difference. It's about how she was raised to act and what she was taught to be like in America, as opposed to what Australians have been taught. And now she's finding herself in what is essentially a different culture. And to her, it feels like we have a different set of beliefs and values. And maybe we do.
And I feel like this could be a whole other video in and of itself, but I feel like being raised American in the US, we're raised a lot more like, share your opinions, we want to hear your opinions, tell me about it, like your voice matters. It's okay to be opinionated, it's okay to disagree with someone, it's okay to love something or not love something.
Now here's where the cultural difference comes in. And I think here's where, without realising it, she's basically offending a lot of Australians. Because in Australia, we do value people's opinions. We do believe that people's voices matter. We respect it when people have their own opinions or when they disagree with us. And we respect if someone loves something or that they say that they don't love something. But there's a difference. And perhaps for someone who has grown up in a country where there's less subtlety in the way people interact, it is hard to see that we do share those values. Because in Australia, while we share those values, we've been taught that there's also that need to respect the opinions of other people, to respect that other people are entitled to have a voice as well, to respect that people are going to disagree with us, and to respect that people might love something that we don't love, or they might not love something that we do love. So we've been taught to soften the blow. I mean, you just look at the way we go, yeah, nah. We don't go outright, nah. A lot of people would be like, well, yeah, nah. Meaning, well, I acknowledge what you're saying, but I disagree. Whereas, if you were to go to America presumably, they'd be like, nope, you're wrong. And that is the impression that I get in terms of the way that this girl interacts with people. She doesn't quite understand the subtleties that exist in Australia in terms of interactions. So she does blurt out her opinions. She does do it in a way that is perhaps a little bit too blunt for most Australians to take. And I can understand why she's so negative about Tasmania, because Tasmanians are super, super friendly people, and Tasmanians will be so diplomatic. They'll tell you they disagree with you, but they'll find a diplomatic way about doing it. They will acknowledge your opinion, or that you've had your say, or the majority of Tasmanians will. And I think this goes for most Australians. We will acknowledge when someone says something that we disagree with, and we will acknowledge the positives of that, and then put forward our own opinion. Australians just aren't blunt. So to us, the way that someone like Ashley comes across is as being blunt and rude, and of not respecting other people's opinions, and of not respecting other people's voices. And yet to her, she sees it the other way round. Because people arc up, and that's what I believe is happening here. I believe that Australians are arcing up because she's coming across as one of those brash, loud, obnoxious kind of Americans that just goes against the way we interact in Australia. And a lot of people will arc up at that because they will see it as rude. Australians are super friendly, super nice people until they feel that you are disrespecting them, or until they feel that you are being rude towards them. And then they can arc up and they can become as snarky as the next person. I think that's what she has experienced.
Again, done in a respectful manner, but I feel like just not having a fear of sharing your opinions and standing out was instilled in me at a young age growing up in America, whereas I feel like here in Australia, with tall poppy syndrome, which I've talked about so many times, I don't think recently though, I cannot imagine growing up in a country that has tall poppy syndrome so heavily instilled in its culture. Like, if you stand out, oh, screw you, we don't want you.
So I think what I just said before about people arcing up when someone comes across as being rude or pushing their opinion too much, as I think that thing where we arc up at it because we take offence. And then here she's saying that it's tall poppy syndrome. So it got me thinking, what exactly is tall poppy syndrome? I think there are people in every country who have that narcissistic trait that when they see someone who is being successful, that they feel insecure about their own perceived lack of success. And so they will turn around and they will say things to cut that person down. I don't think it is something that is as heavily ingrained in Australian culture as what she is suggesting. And I think that you find it in every single culture. I have a second channel which looks at true crime, and a large percentage of the people who follow me on that channel are Americans. And I've found that other true crime channels can be quite vicious towards my channel. And that's not something that is unique. The whole true crime community on YouTube seems to be polarised. There are people who try to quietly just do their own thing, put out their content and avoid drama. And then there's other people who come along and choose a channel for some reason that they dislike, and they will do their best to really hammer on that channel. And there is a real negativity that exists. And that is American channels going at other American channels, going at Australian channels, going at channels from the UK. It's that sense that they have to cut down these other channels for some reason. So to say that this notion of tall poppy syndrome is something that is uniquely Australian, to me seems incredibly naive. Like I said, I think while we describe it as tall poppy syndrome, and it is perhaps acknowledged as being an Australian thing, that is simply because we have adopted that term for it in Australia. That doesn't make it something that is uniquely Australian. There are people who are insecure all over the world who will try and cut down other people because of their own insecurities. But where's the line? How do we know when someone is claiming that they are a victim of tall poppy syndrome that that is in fact the case? That there are people who are looking at them and feel inadequate because they're of this person's success and are trying to cut them down for that reason? Or is it this Australian culture thing of we don't like people who brag, we don't like people who put down other people, who talk themselves up, who try to put themselves out there as being the expert? And the majority of Australians do get their backs up when people act like that. And they will react when people act like that in a not so friendly manner. Is that still tall poppy syndrome? Or is that simply just being intolerant of someone who is acting in a way that is not socially acceptable within our culture?
Kind of mentality, not always that exaggerated in the slightest. But I feel like especially in Tasmania, I got that because I very much challenged the norm a lot when I lived there, and I feel like I upset people or ruffled some feathers for being different.
So she is acknowledging here that she believes that because she was being different, that she upset people and ruffled feathers. And this goes back to the cultural differences that I was speaking about. In Australia, when you go into a new workplace, there is that expectation for you to sort of feel things out a bit, to earn respect before you start putting your opinion on people, to take your time to get the feel of the workplace before walking all over people and trying to give the impression that you are more important than them, or that your opinion counts more than theirs. Now, I am not saying that this is what she's done, but as someone who lived in Tasmania for 40-something years, worked in Tasmania for 20-something years, I know what Tasmanians are like. The rest of Australia will joke about Tasmania, but at the end of the day, most people will acknowledge that Tasmanians are perhaps the most friendly people in Australia. Yeah, people joke about, oh, they're a bit simple because they're so friendly. But no, it's just that culture of, chances are the person you're speaking to is related to someone you know, or they're friends with someone you know, or there's always that 3 degrees of separation in Tasmania. Everybody knows everybody else, or they know someone who knows someone else. And I guess that's part of the reason why Tasmania is such a friendly place. It is a smaller, close-knit community. It's hard to explain to someone who's not Tasmanian, but it is definitely far more friendly. And that said, when you get into a workplace, there are some more, I guess you could say, traditional values. So that in many workplaces, there is that expectation that you need to kind of earn your stripes first before jumping in and trying to take over, or trying to be really loud about your opinions. You need to earn the right to share your opinions. And maybe that's wrong, but that's just the way it is. It's about respect. And I'm not saying that she doesn't have respect for her work colleagues. What I'm saying here is that it seems that she comes from a culture where speaking out and speaking your mind and loudly voicing your opinion is not considered as being disrespectful. But when it treads on other people, then in Australia that is seen as being disrespectful. And I think that's where this cultural imbalance is occurring. I truly believe that she is right in what she's saying, that she's upset people with her bluntness in Tasmania, and that they have perceived her as being rude. I don't think it's fair to then turn around and say that that is Tasmania having tall poppy syndrome. I think the reality is, it is that cultural difference.
And I did chat about my time in Tasmania, why I left, kind of my opinions about living there specifically as an American here. But just the tall poppy syndrome thing is so interesting to me. I have gotten comments being like, oh, that's not a thing, that's not a thing, that's not a thing. Well, you can think that, and that's okay. But I mean, I find it so overwhelmingly obvious sometimes.
She does become very, very defensive about what people think about her reaction to the way people react to her. So I think that at this point in time, it's that struggle of not being able to see why people are reacting negatively towards her, because that's all she's known for 20-something years. So while she can acknowledge that she has offended and upset people, it seems to me that she can't take it that extra step and recognise that it is actually through her own actions, because she grew up around people who act like that. It's normal behaviour for her. So to her, it's easier to label it as tall poppy syndrome, because she can't recognise that what for her is culturally acceptable is not culturally acceptable here in Australia. So is she experiencing tall poppy syndrome? Or is this a culture clash that she's not really truly understanding?
Actually, for those who are unfamiliar, tall poppy syndrome, I will include a graphic or a text of some sort here to explain it a bit. But it's basically if you're in a field of poppies, in a field of flowers, and one grows taller than the other, you snip it down, you cut it off so that they're all even, they're all equal. And in theory, I do think that it does promote some great values like being humble, being respectful, working as a team, building community. However, I disagree with the mentality that just because someone shares their opinions or isn't afraid to show confidence in any way, that means that they deserve to be cut down like a tall poppy. And I'm gonna leave that there because I could rant on this topic forever and ever.
And, well, she did rant quite a bit about it. Now, an interesting observation that I've heard someone make in the past, where she's talking about how, the tall poppy syndrome, the one poppy that grows taller than the rest, you want to cut it down because you want them all to be equal. Another analogy I read was that the idea of the poppy that has grown taller than the rest is that it is stifling the other poppies. It is blocking their light and preventing them from growing, preventing them from getting sunlight, and preventing them from getting the rain, getting what they need to grow. So the notion that the tall poppy is actually stifling the poppies that are below it. And I thought that was interesting, because I think I have different thoughts on tall poppy syndrome, but I think I wouldn't necessarily say that it truly is a thing. I think that there are people in the world who are narcissists. People who will put forward their opinions and push their opinions on people, and who can't see when their opinions are essentially shitting all over everyone else. At the same time, I think there are people who feel inadequate when they see someone achieving success and will try and bring them down. But that is a form of narcissism. And like I said, I think that's something you see worldwide. I definitely believe that what she's describing here is her not reading the room properly, her not fully understanding Australian culture, and not understanding that these things that she's taught to be important values and important ways of acting are in fact things that are considered rude amongst people in Australia. And I hope that she does, over time, learn the difference and start to look more outside of herself in terms of asking herself, why are so many people reacting to me in this way? Is this because Australians are inherently nasty people with tall poppy syndrome who want to pull me down because I'm such a successful person? Or is it because I'm acting in a way that is not culturally acceptable in a country where I'm still learning to follow their social mores? Like I said, I've tackled this video from a slightly different angle this time because I did want to have a bit of a deep dive into the notion of the tall poppy syndrome. So please leave your thoughts below. What are your thoughts on what's been discussed here? Do you think that we do have a problem with tall poppy syndrome here in Australia? Do you think there is perhaps some sort of cultural difference going on here that is making it difficult for Ashley Faye to feel that she can just be herself? Do you think there's a mix of things? Do you have other ideas? I'd really love to hear what people think on this topic. So leave your comments below. Please hit the like button, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel.